Jonathan Herbst, founder and CEO of Scale Up Growth. Welcome again to my Business Focus series, where I chat with owners, managing directors, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies. Today I'm speaking to Petko Petkov, who's founder of Chefin. Welcome, Petko.
Hey, Jonathan. Good to catch up. Pleasure.
Why don't we start with, what is Chefin? What do you do and how long have you been doing?
I've been doing Chefin for probably close to 7 years now, since 2015. We came up with the idea with a bunch of friends, sort of starting to cook for people and organizing sort of a large gatherings at home and sort of seeing how people actually really enjoy food and create these social connections. And then we came up with this idea of how can we actually change the hospitality industry and enable people to really connect with each other, have that time to enjoy with the people that met at home. And then we sort of pivoted a couple of times and came up to the point where we were like, this realization and light bulb moment where we were like, oh yeah, we can actually connect the people that want to cook with the people that want someone else to cook for them and create a marketplace, sort of put them together. So Chefin is a private chef marketplace, just like Uber. You go online, you book a private chef to come to your home. The chef gets assigned, does all the cooking, cleaning, serving, etc. And you just relax and enjoy your time with your friends, basically.
That is idea. Yeah. Right. I was at a charity lunch some time ago, and as happens, I got probably sad a little bit, but I ended up spending a lot of money to buy a dinner for 10 at home with wine and everything else with a chef called Guy Turland. And Guy has gone on to be very successful in the US, and it was one of the best nights I've ever had. So I can see why it works.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You probably would have done it just before we overtook that contract. At the moment, we do all the charitable dinners, around 300 across the country, basically. So we have an exclusive contract with the bidding agency that provides the charitable vouchers and the dining experiences. So at the moment, the chefs actually provide all of these experiences in home, and yeah, they are pretty memorable. Sometimes people spend a lot of money on it, but the main thing to remember is that we actually do it just on a cost basis to actually pay the chef on an hourly rate, minimum wage, to actually go and deliver this and cover the ingredients, and then everything else goes to the charity. So it's a really, really good cause from that perspective. Yeah.
So who would you describe as your core customer, your best customer?
I was just like looking through some of the questions that you sent through, and I have this customer, Nicole. She's amazing. Like every time we have a dinner with her, and she just leaves us a comment that every time it's better than last time. She's out like every year, the Christmas dinners. She's got these cute like labeled cups with the names of every family member and stuff like that. It's just with all the like bonbon like crackers and stuff like that. It's just really, really enjoyable experience. Very easy service for the chefs, and the customer just loves it more and more every time. So for me, Nicole is like our best customer. She's just general person, retired actually, just organizing a dinner for the whole family and not wanting to cook herself for around 10 people every Christmas, basically 10, 11 people. So it's been amazing for the last 5 years. She's been with us basically.
What great idea. So tell me, whereabouts do you operate?
We operate national at the moment. We cover all the states, including some of the regional areas where our chefs travel to. We even went to Calgary the other couple of months ago, actually, which is like really in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, super. So listen, it must have been an interesting time going through COVID. All the shutdowns, etc. How did you adapt to COVID, and what actions have you taken so far? Did you take that you've embedded in your business going forward?
So COVID was definitely quite interesting. Like the biggest one for me was that we were actually really focused from a sort of a startup perspective and early stage startup. We were really focused on a single market in Sydney and New South Wales. So that caused a bit of a problem for us during COVID, because overnight we lost 95% of our business. We could only do romantic dinners for 2 because that was the only thing that was allowed, which is still better than what we had in Melbourne. We had a little bit of business in Melbourne, but there you couldn't even do a romantic dinner for 2 because it was slightly more strict on the Andrews. But anyway, so the biggest lesson for us then was that you always need to take advice with a pinch of salt. And the advice for us that was given back in the days from our early stage investors and advisors was to just focus on the core market, which was New South Wales, and really grow that to dominate the market. So when COVID hit, that was obviously wrong and it didn't work out very well. But we took a change in strategy. We expanded nationally, started covering all the smaller places. We did a lot of business in Brisbane and Perth, for example, expanded to Hobart and Tassie and Adelaide and Canberra as well. So we managed to actually recoup like 50% of the business through expansion in 2020, which was amazing. And we still have like around 50% of the business now coming nationally and 52% coming from Sydney and New South Wales. So that's been really, really good learning for me, and an advice that I always share with the rest of the people that come to me sometimes.
And what do you think your future looks like, and what are the main challenges for you and the business going forward?
The main challenges are always funding for startups. So for us to expand, the next steps are to continue expanding, vertically. So we need to continue covering more and more cities across the world to actually be able to scale.
Or is it horizontally?
Horizontally, yes, sorry. I always mix it up. But we started expanding in the US. We've covered a couple of regions in Asia as well, like Singapore and Hong Kong. And something that we've actually noticed is that being national in Australia also gives us a massive competitive advantage. And it's one of our current USPs. We actually attract international business that is coming to Australia. So businesses that are headquartered in Singapore, they'll come to us and order entertainment and chefs for different teams across the country, like large companies like BHP, contracts from like Microsoft and stuff like that. And that helps us to actually expand and get into other markets as well.
Fabulous. I'd like to go back and delve into that a bit further. So future is international and going broad. What are the challenges out there?
The biggest challenge is funding, basically, as I mentioned earlier, because you've got to actually copy and redo what is done in every city from scratch. There is really sort of a growth hack, if you want to call it, unless you acquire a competitor in particular markets, which is something we're also looking for the US in particular, where we can actually acquire a competitor to give us a bit of a head start and start from a bigger sort of point rather than zero. It is very common in startup space and business space anyway to acquire competitors in markets to sort of get a bit of market share and a reputation from that perspective as well. But funding and probably sort of how you invest the funding can make the most out of every dollar. Basically, I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge. People-wise, there is always shortage of people in recruitment, no matter who you speak with. But I'm a really big believer of freelancing and actually getting access to people that run their own businesses and want to help you and be part of your business, rather than just constantly employing and really growing your business too much from a headcount perspective, which is what we can see is happening now in the tech market anyway. Like everyone that's been just bolstering up their employees is just cutting 10, 20, 30% of their employment force because they've been just investing too much for particular growth that they projected, but also for people leaving, for potential issues, etc. So they've had a lot of like fat into the employee headcount that is currently getting cut. So the market is very interesting from an employment perspective, but I do believe very strongly in the freelancer model and having access to resources rather than actually owning everything.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, and that's where I was pushing you to go to, was the people is one of the obvious issues. It's one of the things I talk to my clients about is the concept of, call it freelance, but staff on demand. And those staff can be at any level. People think about staff, freelancers as VAs or bookkeepers and the like. But staff on demand, it could be a CFO, it could be a chief technology officer. Bring in for a project, wham, hit it, and then they go. And I use the example of my business. The majority of my staff are staff on demand. Through places like Upwork. The coaches who work my business, my BA, they're really the full-time people I have. But I currently have. Let me think about it. I've got a LinkedIn ad specialist. I've got a um, blah, 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 active campaign specialist. Like, in fact, I was thinking about it. I think I've got about 9 currently different projects being run by freelancers, and it works really, really well. What do you think's been the biggest learning you've had as a business owner?
Um, I mean, from a learning perspective, I'll say that the scaling sort of horizontal has been a really big learning for me. I guess the other one, which is what we just discussed about employing and contracting people and actually having access to really highly skilled people that are part of your business, but also do something else as well, either run their own agencies or a part of like other startups and other businesses. And also being something that's been really sort of revolutionary for me this year is just being involved back in the ecosystem and mentoring other people and sort of being positioned on both sides of the equation, from having mentors to also mentoring others and sharing knowledge and learning from mentoring as well. So that's been also really, really good for me from a learning perspective. Yeah, that's probably the main ones that I could share.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in there if you think about it. So, the learning from mentors, the mentoring of learning how to coach and learning how to be coached, really is, they're probably one of the two of the key skills of any business owner. And if an entrepreneur can work out how to coach properly and how to be coached, they're huge skills. I like the story of that Steve Jobs and Eric Schultz. So Steve Jobs, Apple, Eric Schultz, the then CEO of Google, both had the same coach at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But it is true. You got to be in touch with the ecosystem and you got to learn from the best in order to become the best. Like some sort of other sort of learnings that I could share around that I really love is like from a sort of an innovation perspective, like a lot of people talk about ideas, but ideas are really, really worthless. What really matters is how you actually execute and how you move your business forward. What is your execution strategy? How are you going to get from point A to point B? And that actually ends up being your USP as well, like a really, really big asset in the business. Then from sort of starting up perspective, when you start your business, I think a lot of people make a mistake to actually focus on the solution. But real and most important thing actually is the problem you're solving. What is the biggest problem you're solving? How you're actually contributing to people's life, to your customers' life. And then from a growth perspective, really a big learning for me has been that sort of a distribution channel section, having actually distribution channels that constantly drop leads into your funnel. That's been a really, really big game changer for us. Like when we get a contract for 200 to 300 bookings a year, it just makes a huge difference rather than zombieing through every single booking, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all good. Think about the word successful. Who comes to mind and why?
The first thing, I was just thinking about it a bit earlier. The first thing that really comes to my mind when you sort of mentioned the word successful is the book Atomic Habits. I know just before last week. Yeah, we had a very quick chat about like reading, right? I am a big reader. I don't like too much podcasts, or like I don't really watch too much like videos and stuff like that. I try to sort of disconnect myself from the screen, and I like to read physical books. So for me, like Atomic Habits just comes up on top of my head, and it's really about that success is an illusion. It's not really about success. It's about how we actually go through our life. What are the habits that we build? What is the personality we want to have? What is the sort of the perception of ourselves we want to have in the future, who we want to be, and how we actually achieve that, and what is the path that we take. That is really what success should entail, rather than a destination that people are aiming for and maybe would never achieve.
And James there, he's got a great blog that comes out of Atomic Habits, reinforcing those lessons. So you actually answered 2 questions in one there. So when you think of the word successful, you're thinking about, is there someone specific? So the book, Atomic Habits, James Clear, I'm going to push into the next question. top 3 business books, but who else would you think is successful out there? Who else pops to mind?
I mean, as people, like, I think for me, what I was like to say is that success is really just an illusion. Like, I don't really associate, like, I mean, you can think of people that are sort of labeled as successful in different places, like Elon Musk and the Atlassian co-founders and the Canva guys and stuff like that. But it depends a lot on the environment. For me, it's really about the journey. You got to be really enjoying the journey you're taking and to the destination you have for yourself. And it doesn't really matter what the destination is. The journey is your real success, basically. But yeah, from a book perspective, definitely Atomic Habits. And then I'm really, really big fan of LinkedIn. I do tend to spend a lot of time reading on LinkedIn and following other sort of like-minded people, and sort of they follow me, I follow, they post, I post, and we all sort of share knowledge online. I find that really amazing. And then there's another book that I love, which is called The Goal, like a soccer goal. It's about the theory of constraints. It's quite an old book from Eli Goldratt, but it's really amazing.
Eli Goldratt. It's one of, well, I reckon it's one of the top business books I've ever read.
Oh yeah, it's game changer. It's just really refocuses the way you think about what is the constraint and how you need to structure your business to actually operate on maximum capacity.
Yeah, no, really good advice. So listen, any last piece of advice or parting words for entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
I think like something that I just posted on LinkedIn last week, actually, was my summary for the week after I mentored 19 people last week. It was number 1, be obsessed with the problem. Always be obsessed with the problem. First thing you should do. The second one is follow the money. Always follow the money. If there's a customer paying you, just get in that space, do what needs to be done, and learn from the mistakes and from the feedback. And 3, try not to spend any dollars. You know, business exists to make money. It doesn't exist to spend money.
Some great pieces of advice in there. Yeah, I wrote a blog last week about the key things that a leader, a CEO should be focused on. You know, what are the KPIs for a CEO? You know, what's the strategy? Do I have the right people on the bus? Are they doing the right things? And do I have the right culture? Do I have enough cash? You know, without the cash, the whole thing's over.
Yeah, kaboom.
Exactly right. And then
number 1 reason. I think it's number 1 reason why your business, right?
Yeah, exactly right. If your burn rate is too high, you won't succeed.
Yeah,
it's really nice. So listen, thank you so much for taking the time. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how you ramp this thing up globally. It's going to be a fascinating journey.
Thanks. We'll keep in touch, and I'll keep sharing stuff on LinkedIn, sharing with the community, and I'm sure I'm gonna make many more mistakes in the future. But at the end of the day, we got to learn to stand up and keep going. Grit is really, really important for a business owner.
Grit is absolutely important. Petko, thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jonathan.